Hey YouTube, it's day 12 of VEDA. Well, not really, it's still day 10 for me, but this is probably going to be uploaded on day 12. So this should be the final part in my series on Catholic social thought, and today I would like to talk about just war and the environment. The idea of just war is that there are certain principles a nation should follow when it's considering going to war. And Catholic social teaching does state that sometimes war is socially and morally acceptable, but these tenets have to be followed. First of all, there must be grave danger involved. So if you don't go to war, like something terrible will happen and lots of people will die. You have to have exhausted all other means of finding peace before you go to war. So if you have not tried diplomatic methods of solving your conflict, then you have to do that first, or else the war will not be just. You also have to have a serious chance of winning. You can't just waste all your troops and all those lives if you don't have a chance of winning. You must do the least amount of damage necessary, and this includes not targeting civilian areas. You should only target military areas and military people, which is very difficult in this day and age because it's not like both sides line up and they fire at each other, and a lot of time the other side will put their military base in a place where there are a lot of civilians, so this part is very tricky. A legit authority must be declaring war, so random members of the population can't declare war. It has to be the government. You have to have the right intention for going to war. So if there's a genocide in some other country and you decide to go in there in order to secure your economic interests, that would not be a legitimate reason for going to war, and it would not be just. It also has to be proportional. So if someone shoots one of your guys, you do not have the right to drop a bomb on them. And there are lots of issues with war. There are lots of Catholics who don't believe in war and are total pacifists. They don't believe that just war is okay. And this can fit in with just war. They could feel like there's never a good cause for going to war. And I think it's interesting that Catholic social teaching allows for all these debates and differences of opinion. Something else I wanted to talk about was selectively conscientious objectors. Hi guys, it's me from the future. I actually looked up selectively conscientious objectors, so now I know what I'm talking about. So if you decide before a war or at some point during a war that you are a conscientious objector to war, you don't approve of war in any circumstance, then you can get out of serving in a, what are those things called? A position where you carry a gun and may be called to kill people, basically. And if you can prove that you're a conscientious objector, then you get put in an alternative service, which is usually healthcare or something like that, where you don't have a gun. However, if you are a selectively conscientious objector and you oppose to a certain war and you refuse to participate after you've signed up to be in the military, then you are sent to prison. Catholics have a big problem with this because it deals with issues of freedom of religion, because the Catholic religion says that yes, you can go to war unless it's not just, and so if you discharge them for having these feelings, then you're limiting their religion. But at the same time, I can understand where they're coming from, because if everyone just became selectively conscientious objectors, whatever the word is, then you wouldn't have an army and you wouldn't be able to fight your war. But I think this is probably a good thing. If people are allowed to object specific wars, then that should encourage our government to only get involved in wars where there are just causes. We shouldn't support a war that isn't just. And then something else I wanted to talk to is the environment, the idea of the environment, and how issues with the environment do impact poor people more than they do non-poor people, and they also tend to impact women more than they do men, because if there isn't a source of water, it's the women who have to go out and walk farther and get the water or get the firewood or whatever it is. And it also impacts poor people more because if I don't have something, I can just go to the store and get it. if there aren't resources around, but if someone else in like a third world country needs something, they have to like look to their environment and the things around them in order to get what they need. And the big issue of contention when dealing with the environment is the idea that in Genesis it states that God gave man dominion over the earth, and a lot of people take this to mean it's like God's gift to us and we can do whatever the heck we want with it. But I see it more as dominion means like, hey, God gave us this to protect it and to value the dignity of all creation. And I mentioned this in my vegetarian blog about how I think that we do have an obligation to protect every living creature and to protect the environment, not just for our own resources, but for the future. Like, we should be looking out for all of humanity. And so that's my views on Catholic social thought, and I hope you found this interesting and informative. And as always, leave any comments below.